Welcome to the Leadership Toolkit, hosted by Mike Phillips.
Hey, welcome to the show, everybody. My name is Mike. This is the Leadership Toolkit, as you know, the definitive leadership podcast to help you grow yourself, grow your company, grow the people that you interact with, and you'll have the opportunity to learn from other people's successes, some of their failures, so you can take that shortcut to success. And I am super excited to bring to you today a good friend of mine, Mr. Brian G. Johnson. He is an entrepreneur. He's a YouTuber. He helps other people grow. Just his nature is he's an absolutely amazing individual. So with that, I'm going to bring on screen right now Mr. Brian G. Johnson. Welcome to the show today, sir.
Mike, what is happening? It is really great to be here. Thank you for having me. Really excited to get in today and just have a conversation about entrepreneurship and leadership. Let's do it.
Absolutely. Well, if you would just take maybe a couple minutes and share a little bit of your journey, your background, how did you get into, because you and I have actually been friends for a little bit, and we've had the opportunity to connect personally. So I know some of your background really started in sort of digital entrepreneurship and some things like that, and moving into I was just sharing a story beforehand how we connected into the YouTube sphere, and you helping grow smaller creators, and that's how I found you, so to speak. So if you would share a little bit of your background and your journey.
Awesome, Mike. Well, yes, I'm Brian G. Johnson. I've been an online entrepreneur for many years. Way back in 2002, I actually quit my job as a professional day chef. I don't know where that came from. As a professional chef. And I was so grateful because I was really interested in making it happen with internet marketing. And at the time, there was no Facebook. There was definitely no Twitter, or the kids are on like the LinkedIn and TikTok. That's the thing. Oh, yeah. And it wasn't the only thing you could do is you could build a website. And I was really passionate about building websites, and I just kept learning, and I stayed curious and did a lot of different things. And fast forward about 10 years later, and I wrote this book right here, Trust Funnel, which is like this idea. If you took Zig Ziglar and dropped him in today's economy and kind of the ecosphere of like online marketing and whatnot, maybe this is kind of the thing that would come out. That was an amazing a time in my life. I did really great with that, continued the marketing. Several years later, I decided when I grew up, I would move forward and move over to YouTube, wrote another book about YouTube, silver play button holder, and just a guy that likes to share the journey. And that's how I think of what I do, much more than I'm a guru or a coach. However, I do like to teach and share, and it's just like, hey, this is what I've learned. Maybe you can apply it to what you're doing. And that's kind of how I got started.
Yeah, I love it. And I think that's one of the ways that is you and I got connected. I think you have a very candid, very straightforward approach. And just by nature, you've ended up being certainly somebody that I look to for mentorship and leadership. You're really direct. I've asked for questions on growth on my channel and other things in life. And often, even if it's not maybe what I want to hear, but what I need to hear, those are the best people to coach in your life. And so that's one of the reasons I wanted to talk to you today on the show. And also, I mean, this, in fairness, you told me probably 2 or 3 years ago, we were talking about YouTube growth and business growth. And I don't know if you remember saying this to me or not, but you said, Mike, what you need to do is you need to do something and do it consistently enough that you have an asset.
You know what, Mike, I remember, and it's so easy as an entrepreneur to get carried away with all the things. They're so shiny. And well, what about this? And there's that thing over there. And for me, what I learned over time is the longer I do one specific thing and focus on that. And the idea is, the way I think about it today is even a little bit past that, is like, I'm going to really look at the process of the thing that's going to get me the results. So on YouTube, what does everybody want, Mike? Go ahead and get one guess, and that's it. What do they want on YouTube?
Well, there's two things. It's going to be either views or subscribers. How do I get more views? How do I get more people?
Boom. But you know what's really strange is very few people focus on the process of how to make that happen. even though the number one search term for YouTube is how to get more views. But when you get into the details, the really specific instructions of how to make that happen, you lose people. But the more you can stay consistent, see, that's the key. Even if you're not really trying, but you're consistent and you're just trying to improve, that is literally all it takes to wind up somewhere you could never really believe, a place of a success that feels good, and you feel like I did the thing I set out to do. And a lot of people that, they kind of start and they're like, well, I guess I'm just going to see what happens, or, I want to publish a few videos and see. And I'm like, well, you failed. Impossible to get results in that way. So
one of the things that you're saying is, okay, well, you have to be consistent, you have to improve. What are some outside ways? What are some things that you've done in your time on YouTube or being an online entrepreneur to definitively know that you were improving? What are those things that you can look at to say, okay, I'm further ahead today than I was previously?
I think the first thing to really recognize, and just let me say hello to all the crew over at Brian G. Johnson TV, because I did share this live stream, Mike.
I see that.
The entire channel. Bostar, what's happening? Good to have you. Pam, welcome. Reef Rookie is in the house, gang.
Trap Vision.
Let's do this thing. Get some clicks on that like button and let's light this thing up. I guess for me it is impossible to move forward until you have a mindset of, I am going to improve. I am going to move forward. I'm going to think about this in a way where I do have the capacity to look at a video I published just days ago and say, there must be something I can do to improve the viewing experience. And the moment you say that, is the moment that you're focused on what truly matters to the viewers. Now, if I get this question one more time, I'm afraid of what's going to happen. I can't handle it. Oh, what time should I publish? Like, worry about that when you have 50,000 subscribers, you're doing 10,000 views in 24 hours. Then it matters. In the beginning, your audio sucks. You don't even have a voiceover. You don't have any like compelling titles or thumbnails you're editing. And all you have to do is like move forward and really think about the process of creating that video that viewers value. And then if you say, well, what are the things that the viewers value? Story, editing, lighting, the core of a great video. Today, I watch YouTube on my big screen TV, and I watch Netflix on my big screen TV. And the difference between the two is starting to diminish. It's kind of the same experience. So what I think about as far as what I'm doing is I'm creating something that could show up on Netflix or on YouTube. And there's a difference, and I'm aware, and it doesn't need to be, edited by a professional team, and I don't need to film on $100,000 camera, but the message needs to be dialed in. The audience needs to be dialed in. So that's kind of how I think about improving, is really, truly valuing the viewers. And if anybody right now is listening and they're saying, I'm just not sure how to make that happen, I understand. But I want you to replace that with just one or two words. I'm just not sure how to make that happen right now. That's it. And when you do that, you're opening up the possibility of figuring out a problem. But sadly, if you think to yourself, well, I don't know how to do that, you're not tasking your brain with how to move forward and solve the problem. That's why we solve problems in the shower or at night when we're in our bed, and all of a sudden the answer comes because we've opened ourselves up to the possibility and the potential.
I love that. And and this is one of the reasons that I wanted to sit and talk with you, because I think there's so many things, and again, that you've taught me that completely, regardless of the business, being an online entrepreneur, a YouTuber, when you get into leadership, I think one of the key things, and what I'm hearing you say, is like, serve the person that you're there to serve. If you're a leader or manager in any business, and it's the same thing being here in YouTube, it's like, who's the person that I'm there to serve, and am I doing a good job of that? And I love the fact that you're asking questions like, what are those key things, the editing and the other pieces that go into it? one thing that I'm curious about, because you had said, okay, I've been an online entrepreneur for a long time, and I know you've done. You and I have had conversations over lunch about this. That you know you've had a lot of success being an online entrepreneur, starting back at you said in 2002. Now you're doing that. How do you? And I'm just going to dive right into this question because I know even for myself, there are certain things that motivate me, and there's a lot that motivates me in that leadership realm because I get feedback from people, and I'm like that's one of the things that drives me. When you're in that space, and maybe you're an individual or somebody that has just a smaller team, how do you stay motivated? What keeps you fired up and going, Brian?
You know, honestly, there have been periods where I haven't been Mike, you know, and I took a lot of time just to regroup and you know find myself again. And I think it's really really important that you know we're honoring what's most important in our lives. And for me, you know, going through personal stuff and whatnot in a divorce, I took a few years. But what's so interesting is, you know, during this time, I took a step back and I still had cameras in my hand, which was insane. And the
Sure.
thing I would do in order to like relieve a little bit of stress would be to get outside and do photography and whatnot. And I thought about, you know, I need to have that purpose. I need to create, I need to make money. I need to do the things that are going to be fulfilling to me. And as I just stayed on that journey, you know, I got to a place where I felt like I'm really ready to work again. You see, I'm ready to play at my potential. So, for example, over the last 6 or 7 months, I think I've made some videos where I'm playing at 85, 90% of my potential. I'm really
Mhm.
trying, you know, I'm thinking, I'm scripting, I'm doing all the things that I would do. And prior to that, I was maybe at 30 or 40%. And when I came back, I was so grateful. Roger's in the house, and Rachel Smets is here. Great to see Rachel and all the folks dropping in. But you
You
know,
got
when
the
I
whole
came back,
BG TV crew.
yeah, when I came back, one of the things that I quickly identified was I still have an audience, and I think it
Mhm.
is so important to value that. Now, this is what really messes up so many people is they play this comparison game. And they have no business doing that because it just, how can that possibly help you? For me today, I'm so grateful for every single viewer because it's not a viewer, it's not a view, it's a human being. And if I have a chance to share something that's inspired me, that's excited me, if I can share something about a new way of doing something, that is wonderful. And that is very fulfilling. And furthermore, that one person can change the scope of your life. They can offer you a great opportunity with another company. You never know. So for me, the first thing I did was really value the fact that, wow, I haven't really done anything in years and I still have people here. And then somehow I found this ability to disassociate the results I had driven years ago versus what I get today. And thank goodness, because that was a different time and place. I had worked really hard for 3 or 4 years to build up to a certain level of results. And then I dropped off for 4 years, publishing
Mhm.
kind of a half-ass video every 6 weeks. And that does not grow a channel. So I'm so grateful that when I came back, I'm just really good with where I'm at. And I think a really big part of staying motivated, a really big part of that is being able to be grateful for where I am in the journey, because the juice is in the journey. There's no destination. It doesn't matter. You know how I spend my time? I make videos, I edit. That's it. So it's like, you know, sure, I wanted that milestone. I'm grateful for that. I made that
Mhm.
happen. But, you know, people warn me, well, just when you're going to get it, and when you get it, and you know, it might not be all everything you make it up to be. And I didn't have any expectations. So the thing I would say about staying motivated is just try to enjoy the small wins along the way and be cognitive and mindful of where you're at in the journey, and try your best to enjoy it. Because at the end of the day, what else do we really have? Like, I don't need numbers to validate me anymore. You know, it took me a long time to get to that point, but that's where I'm at today. And thank God. because that is, just not a place to be. So like when I share this message, if I can share it with one person and I plant a seed, for me, that's the reward. Not that I need to get 100,000 views on my next video, although I'd really like to get, I'd like to make that happen. So.
Right. So, of course, I think everybody does. I think we live in a society where it's like, oh man, how many other people? But I think one of the things that you said, there's a few things I want to pull out of there. One that I think is really valuable is the fact that you said, how are you connecting with one person? What's that one person that you're impacting? And I think that, when we get into a role where we're either in front of others, somewhere like YouTube, when we're in a management role in business, any of those places, we get into somewhere where we either deliberately or even inadvertently have the spotlight. I think it's really important to remember, and you just nailed it, like take that step back and know that it's not just a view, it's not just a click, it's not just a like, it's a human that is taking that in. I think that's so powerful. Before I get way ahead of myself too, I'm going to throw these two things up on the screen, and especially if anybody's listening on the podcast here, when I redo the podcast on Spotify and Apple for the audio version, make sure you check out, Brian has a great website, has a great course. That's one of the things that you and I connected on at briangjohnson.tv. That tube ritual course that you offered, and that's one of the ways you and I connected, and you gave me some really candid feedback on growing as a person and as a channel. And then also Brian's YouTube channel, certainly if you look up Brian G. Johnson on YouTube, he shows right up, but youtube.com/@ Brian G. Johnson TV will get you there. One of the things that you just said, you said, hey, I had to sort of disassociate. What you had commented was you had disassociated where you are with where you were headed. How did you come to that realization?
Did I say that, or I said, was it that, or was it like what I had built in the past?
Yes. You said you disassociated yourself with what you'd built in the past to where you're headed. You're correct.
Again,
how did you come to that realization?
Like, because if I would have started uploading videos now, in this season of my career as a YouTuber, then I'm really building up expectations based on something that is done and over with, a time period that is long gone. I was at my high point literally now 5 years ago. And what's cool too, though, is I look back at some of the videos I published during that time, and I was really proud. I think enough time had passed where I was like, I was good at that. And I taught myself that. I started with nothing. And today I am, crazy wildlife photographer,
Yeah, you've got some unbelievable
osprey coming out of the water, and just all different creative endeavors that came from YouTube and learning and growing. And so, if I would have hung on or clinged to the type of results I was driving 5 years ago, I'm kind of living in the past. And for me, it's really important to live in the moment, because the past is just that. In the future, that's filled with expectations. But if I can value what I have today, doesn't mean I don't want to hit that video with 100,000 subscribers or views, rather. It does mean that I'm going to be good with where I'm at. And, I think, one of your first questions really focused around staying consistent, staying motivated, because that's where the success comes from. Someone said juice is in the journey. That needs to be a t-shirt. I think so. I think I'm going to make a Brian G t-shirt out of that, because what's the point, man? You know what I mean? Like, if you're going to be, like, for anybody watching, if you're going to be a highly successful YouTuber, you're going to be making content on the regular for a long period of time. And, if you want 100,000 subscribers and you're like, well, I'm going to publish a few videos and see, those don't mesh. You know what I mean? It's like, you need hundreds and hundreds of videos and more, really, the experience of how to connect with a viewer in order to make that happen. And yet you're kind of like, your expectations are completely out of whack. And that's why people, I think, struggle and fail, is because of where their expectations are.
So how do you when you're going into that, do you have any suggestions on how to manage your own expectations? How did you manage your expectations? Because I think a lot of people have visions of grandeur, right? You go in and like, it's easy maybe for somebody like you to say, oh, 100,000 views, and we go in with that. Do you have some suggestions on how to manage expectations?
Yeah, I do. And I think the first thing that happens is we realize the endeavor and what we're asking for. We realize the magnitude of what we're trying to achieve, and basically reality slaps us in the face. Mike Tyson's got that fight with Jake.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of respect for Jake. I remember I was at a conference walking down the street with pals and somewhere in California. He rolled by and I said, what's his brother? Hey, Logan. He's like,
Yeah.
It's Jake. I'm like, oh shit. He's like, don't worry. And, and he's like, he's really a different man now, and I just think as far as that process goes of like staying grounded, the more you can just appreciate what you want. And again, you can stay in the moment and then just look at the small things you can try to achieve that would lead to the overall result you want, which is, it takes me back to valuing the viewer, making better content. And again, really appreciating the small steps that we take, because that's where it's at. You know what I mean? Like when you can do that. I remember when I started, I had a big lofty goal, 10,000 subscribers in 1 year. And I started filming with my phone, filming with the phone. My audio was echoey. I would spend forever editing. Everything was new. And it just took a lot of time to publish a video, but I just stayed true to the process. And I was already committed to myself to do the thing and to give it a really good shot. A channel I respect a lot is called Psych Hacks. And this is a channel that's run by a professional psychiatrist. And he talks about the dynamics between men and women and dating and relationships. And when he started YouTube, his timeline was 3 years. 3 years. Yeah, Psych Hacks, exactly. Okay. 3 years. And how many people come into YouTube and say, well, I'm gonna work at this and I'm gonna focus on improving and I'm gonna learn what it's about for 3 years. For me, I came in with a goal of 1 year, and then it's trying to enjoy the process step by step in the daily kind of the daily grind of trying to achieve something big.
So I'm curious because you brought up Psych Hacks, and it's interesting. That's a nice segue. I was going to ask you what are some other, actually it's 2 questions. One is I'm curious because you brought up a lot along the way, consistency, and you're talking about Psych Hacks had 3 years, you had a year. We give it these timelines in our own human brain, right? Besides consistency, besides being consistent, whether it be YouTube, entrepreneurship, business, what are a few other qualities that you would say individuals need to have to see success?
There's a video that everybody should watch by Captain Disillusion, and you want to search for TEDx Talk Captain Disillusion. This is a really great question, Mike. And in that video, Captain Disillusion really it's not a video, it's a TED Talk for 20 minutes. And he breaks down all the different types of YouTubers that there are, the different types of video content that can be created. For example, you could do documentary style. You could do a news style YouTube channel. You could be a comedian. You could make funny skits. You could be really serious. You could be like Orion, the guy from Psych Hacks, I forget his last name. I almost said Taliban, but I don't think that's right. I'm not sure, but that doesn't sound right, does it?
Okay, yeah, no, that doesn't sound right. We'll just go with the guy from Psych Hacks.
But I think what's really important is, and again, here's the problem with why I struggle with so many YouTubers, is it's really impossible to find out what you're great at on YouTube when you're going to test. I'm going to see, and I'm going to upload a few videos, and I'm going to see.
Mm-hmm.
What a bummer, because you never have the opportunity to discover you actually were pretty great at making a voiceover after you made 50 of them. And maybe you started with documentaries and you did that, but then you started weaving some comedy in and so on. So there's like all these different like skills and abilities that really lead to a great YouTuber. But at the end of the day, I think what's really important to value is what a segue. Sometimes it just happens, is your unique value proposition. And what do you bring to the table that's different and unique when compared to other YouTubers? For example, I'm a little bit like, I can go kind of wide. I love doing documentary kind of stuff. I can do like pretty video and B-roll, and I can just do a simple in the studio with some nice lighting. And I learned how to do all those things. But I think what really works the best is when I'm toned down, the humor is at not a minimum, it's still there. And you can kind of sense my quirky vibe, but it took me a long time to discover that that is my sweet spot. You know what I mean? In fact, when I came back to YouTube, you know what I did? I did it all over again. I started making fun, crazy videos, and I started narrowing in, because what am I thinking about? The audience. So the more you can focus on what an audience values and what is my unique selling position. Is it my voiceover? Is it my editing? And when a gamer tells me, well, I make funny gameplay videos, that ain't it, because everybody says that, you know what I mean? So I think that's really, that's really the thing to focus on, is how you can develop the skills. And this is, again, leads into like, how can you develop the skills that matter the most? You know, I don't think I've said or once during this live stream. You know, I've taught myself to talk in a way that, you know, it's also based on what I want to do. Someone said you should talk faster. I'm like, no, I don't want to do that. And if I lose some people along the way, I'm more like Morgan Freeman. I want to have a really captivating voice. I want to pause. I want to like use my voice and whatnot. And that's important to me. So it's really kind of like bringing these things together in a way that an audience really enjoys and values. And the moment you start getting close to that is the moment you blow up. One last thing is, I know beyond a shadow of a doubt, everybody on this stream right now has an amazing YouTube channel within them. It might be the channel they're working on. It might be a different channel, but it begins, finding that place of success begins when you truly value what the viewers value, and you focus on the things that I always talk about. So I just want to end that there, because I think it's, you know, those things all kind of combine together.
No, I think you're spot on. And yeah, I mean, we've got some comments. Trap Vision says sound advice. I want to bring this one up. Reef Rookie says, man, I went so hard in the wrong direction for years. It wasn't until I went with a true passion that things are going well. I'm curious, what do you do? Because like, I think we all know, we all have that sense of, oh man, I'm headed the wrong way, right? For you, like you say it very eloquently, Brian. You're like, oh, hey, if I saw this, and do you have any recommendations if somebody realizes, hey, I'm headed the wrong way, or I made the wrong decision, or I didn't do this thing right? How should they approach that? How should they address that with their audience or their people or even themselves?
I think we have to be willing to give ourselves a bit of grace. And I think that's a really big problem for so many creators. Again, is their expectations are out of whack. And then they, you know, oh my God, it sucks so bad. I'm so embarrassed, you know, and I felt like that myself, and I still do. And I suffer from imposter syndrome like plenty of people. But I think at the same time, I have this ability. Again, I'm thinking about that fight, you know, Mike Tyson. Like, another quote is, I think it's Roosevelt, Teddy Roosevelt, like, success is defined not by winning, but by your ability to crawl up off the floor when you've been knocked down and you get back up. And, you know, I think often what's inside of our head as far as what we want to create, and then what we're actually capable of in real time are two very different things. And when we look at the reality of where we're at, we have to give ourselves a little bit of grace, which again, I think if we don't, then our expectations, we're not, again, we're not living in the moment. So
when you talk about giving grace and you talk about, for me, I feel that, it takes a certain level of humility, a certain level of vulnerability, and to grant ourselves grace. Do you think you can go err on the side of giving too much and continuing to forgive
100%.
yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, a good example of this, Mike, is back in the day, I made 2 videos. One was the topic was somewhere centered around, pat yourself on the back, you're doing great. And the other was, you got to kick yourself in the ass and pick it up. And guess which one did wonderful?
I'm not going to, I would say the kick in the ass, or
No,
probably the other one, the pat on
the
the
other
back.
one where like, yeah, I'm doing great. I'm working hard. And so I think, having that ability and again, this is like, can you be honest with yourself? Can you like really see where you want to go and what you want to achieve? And then can you look at it in terms of being objective with what you need to do to get what can you be objective with what you need to do in order to get what you want? So for me, my process was, what is most important? It's not the information I share, and it's not. You might, all you watching right now that are into the YouTube thing, that ain't it. The thing that really brings people in is when you have an ability to communicate on camera or in a voiceover in a way that makes it easy for the audience to continue watching and feel good about themselves. Like the information has to be great, but that's pretty easy to do. Or the entertainment needs to be pretty great, but it's really more about how you do it. So for me, I remember I was like trying to get to that next level, and I really focused on my delivery, and I got really specific with who are the channels that have the results I want and what are they doing different from me. And furthermore, let's look at myself and how is my delivery very different from those channels that have success. And at that point, I started seeing there's a little bit of humor, but a lot of times when I started, my humor was way at a different level. Now, there was a cult following for that, but I wasn't interested in a cult following. I wanted to be rock star status, world tour unlocked, proceed. You know what I mean? That's what I was after. So I spent a year just practicing my delivery and my tonality and adding the right kind of humor. And every now and then you get the quirky Brian that shows up and he would make just, and again, I love that about myself. You know what I mean? I'm not going to abandon. But again, if you want a huge audience, the buck stops with them. And by really looking at that and then practicing, I'd have signs, communicate clearly, visible in my studio. If it's a voiceover, make sure you communicate clearly. And literally, I taught this. Like, choose one thing that's technical, the lighting, the editing, the keywords. And then every time you shoot, then also strive to improve your delivery. And when I did that is when I increased my subscriber gain by about 3 or 4 times. So there you have it. That was really the process of making it happen for me.
Well, I remember, I do remember sitting through some coaching sessions with you, and you had the, stake your claim, amplify your message. You had all the stuff that were the reminders. And I think you said, and you could correct me if I'm wrong, but at one point it was like, oh man, these are all such good messages. You were like, they're as much reminders to me as any of you guys looking at them, type of stuff, that it was like you were portraying that and just putting it right in front of yourself and the people that you were coaching and your viewers and so forth. I'm curious, there's a couple of things here. So I'm going to bring this one up because I think this is a good good point. Creator Classroom says comparison's the thief of joy. Be happy for those growing and focus on getting where you wish to go. And I think, Brian, you and I have talked a lot about, because you talk a lot about, the individual and how can I serve others. And what I'm hearing you say is, how do I serve the audience? How do I grow myself? How do I develop these skills? I'm curious also for you, who are some of the other people that you follow, and what are the characteristics of people that you choose to connect with that you want to influence you?
Yeah, for me, it always begins with the authentic human element of a creator. So I think when we think about that, it really backs up everything I just said a moment ago.
Mm-hmm.
And when you really try to tap into the authentic you, which I always like to add to that, I think it's the best version of you possible while on YouTube, right? So it's not a license just to do whatever. If you want to grow, then we have to try to improve along the way. So for example, in this live stream, I've been working really hard at staring at the lens. So I'm really maintaining eye contact, because in my last live stream, I had Gabby on and I noticed I was really fidgety. And I bet I'm still doing it, but I'm going to give myself a little bit of grace, because I know if I keep doing that, I'll improve along the way. So it's easy now for me to really look at the lens and whatnot. But Mike, when you're talking, I might go like this, and it just doesn't, I don't like the way it looks. So it's trying to do all those things, simultaneously.
Sure. So, I'm curious, because one of the things, like I said, I've always admired about you since you and I connected is the way, I'm trying to think of how I want to word this, sort of the way that you give feedback. I'm going to shift from YouTuber and creator personality to coach.
Yes.
Because I think
Here
you're
we
really,
go.
because in my opinion, you've helped me grow as a person. You've helped me grow as a creator. And, I think your way of giving feedback is unique. How would you say that you developed your method of giving feedback to others, especially when it's difficult feedback that you might be sharing with somebody?
God, that's really a great question. And my style, for those that don't know, is I'm very direct, and I just speak my mind, and it just kind of comes off my tongue. And this is the real issue. And sometimes it'll even be like, I'm looking at this stuff over here about that, and I'm like, no, that's not why you're struggling. This thing over here is. Or yes, and you really want to focus on this, and I'll be very direct. And I think it just comes from coaching for a really long time. And at a certain point in the process, I think it stems from one, when you truly care, when you truly want results for someone, and you start to honor the fact that they gave me money. Okay. So they not only are they saying, help me to improve, but then they're saying, here are hundreds, thousands of dollars in payment. So I feel it's my responsibility. And then number two, if people ask you the same kinds of questions again and again, and you see them struggling, I still empathize with those individuals. But at the same time, if I'm honest, I think the level of empathy maybe drops a little bit, because if you're around it a lot, you're around it a lot. You know what I mean? I think I heard psychologists talk about a need to kind of keep their private life private from the people they work with and try to help, because if they became too enmeshed, it could be too challenging on an emotional level, So I think when you combine those things, I really want people to get it. And I'm like, you really need to understand this. And it's hard for people. And that's another thing, is they'll stay stuck on the same thing. And I'll say, listen, I'll try to shake them a little bit. And I think that's probably why it comes across. It's a combination of those two or three things.
No, I mean, I think you've shaken me some in the past. If you recall, you're like, Mike, do this. And it's like, okay. And it is, whether it comes to YouTube or personal life, those are the opportunities where you start to grow the most. Hey, Chris Chaos, should have Chris Chaos on the screen sometime. He digs it. Dig.
Yeah. You know, what's funny is I was just looking at his comment coming in,
Yeah.
and yeah, you know, and here's the thing, Mike, like, truth is, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. I'm just like everybody else here. I'm no better. We're all on this swirling vortex of a planet, just trying to get through the day and trying to
Mhm.
make something of our lives. And I just kind of view it as, I think I mentioned this when we started, which is, number one, I'm really stubborn and I kind of set my sights on doing a thing. And
Mhm.
I'm kind of like a dog with a bone. Like, I'm just not going to let go until I'm ready to let go. So along the way, what happens is you start to generate results. I mean, if you really want to learn and you really push yourself, like, to be fair, I make a lot of videos now somewhat.
Mhm.
But I don't know if I'm pushing myself to learn at the same level, but I've gained a lot of skills, so it's a little bit easier today, you
Mhm.
know? And to be fair though, like, I have reorganized this studio numerous times. And in the beginning, it was really hard for me to figure it out. And I think it had to do with where I was at mentally and what was really important, which was establishing a new life and a new identity. You know what I mean? Which is a little kind of swirly or woo, but like, I was going through a lot of changes. And
Mhm.
at that point, you know, that's, you know, I'm just trying to figure it out too. I'm no better than anybody else, but I have some results and experience that I can share. And I try to position myself in that way.
How do you seek out what it is that you're learning? Because you've said a lot of times, like, "Hey, I've continued to learn along the way." Being a YouTuber, do you just seek YouTube? Are there other sources that you go to? What are some of your favorite, for example, like books or podcasts or things that
Yeah.
you have that influence you that allow you to grow?
I think number one is I've always been extremely curious, you know, like,
Stay curious. That's
stay
another
curious.
shirt.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Good call, Mike.
I got you.
Um, and I think that curiosity fuels growth, especially when you're like, I'm going to figure it out.
Mhm.
You know, that's a mindset that a lot of people probably don't have. Or at least, you know, I'm really interested. I'm going to really try to figure it out. And I think when you think about it in that manner, and again, if you think about that, it's not about trying to get more views. It's about, how can I make a really cool video? Or you
Mhm.
asked about like learning and staying curious and uh, what inspires me. Like, it's always been kind of, well, what's the next thing that can kind of take my YouTube channel to a new place where I'm having fun.
Right.
So, and to be fair, some of that got me in trouble. You know, like, I did a video on my channel about, you know, going to Yellowstone Park. And now I have a second channel about photography and videography and cameras. And that fits really well there.
Sure.
So, you know, there are going to be bumps along the way. It won't be perfect. And it doesn't have to be, because it's art and art isn't perfect. But, you know, during that time when I was making that, I was really obsessed with the quality of the video. Like, my lighting is badass. You know, I've always had, like, right now I look at the image and I'm pretty happy. Hopefully those lights are on battery. Like, I love the, and I bought new lighting. I probably spent you know, $2,000 on my lighting when I was at the old house, and now I was pissed off because it wasn't really video lighting. So now I came back and I dropped another two or $3,000, because like, that was important to me, and I was trying to hit a higher level. Like, most people don't see it, but I do.
Mhm.
And I was watching videos from all the camera nerds, and I was learning about, you know, the photography triangle of ISO and shutter speed and aperture and white balance, which I sometimes think of color balance, and the video editing and all of the things that really go into a great video, you know. And there are other things that I'm interested in too, like the psychology of humans and what makes us tick, and all of these things really make up me, you know what I mean? And I think the more we can honor those things in the content we create, then the more authentic we are. So,
Mhm. Well, and I think I love how everything you're sharing to me, because I sit and think through that business lens. Like it parallels so much that business world, and just that it mirrors all the everyday life. And I know obviously we have, and with your channel, you have a lot of, I mean, just looking at all the comments from the different verticals of video that are being shared. And I want to ask this question. Chris Chaos asked this. He says, I'm curious, what makes, because I get asked this question in the realm of like, well, what makes somebody a leader? What's the difference between a leader and a manager? And so I love the way he framed this question.
Okay.
For you, Brian. He says, I'm curious, what makes someone a quote unquote YouTuber? Is it someone that makes videos on YouTube, a specific amount of subs, or someone getting paid from their videos? What is, so I'll close it up for him with, what is the defining moment that you become a YouTuber, Brian?
Honestly, the way I look at this, I don't. I just think it's, who cares? What's the difference? It's like, what really matters is like, how do I make a better video? How do I improve my lighting? How do I communicate on camera in a way that pulls people in? Like, how do I make sure Stuart Wood, who's a macro photographer, who found me on my other channel and then discovered Brian G. Johnson, and then when I shared it here, he came here. How do I make sure that happens? By the way, Stuart, good to see you. And I hope your little jumping spiders are okay. And, so again, like, when do I become a YouTuber? And yet I've heard people talk about this, and I just like, and again, this really goes to how I teach and how I think, because 90% of the things we think about are just not that important.
Right.
So it's like,
as his life,
I have other things that I really want to focus on, and I only have so much capacity. So I'm going to make sure I keep things kind of freed up. So I'm focused on what really does matter, So, today I'm focused on my speech. Today I'm focused on, looking at the lens, like I said, and just, I'm trying to maintain what really matters and talk about the things I value.
It's really good. It's really good. Well, we're coming sort of the tail end. We're just over 45 minutes here on the show. We talked beforehand with respect for both of each other's time and certainly the audience's time. Any sort of final thoughts, any nuggets of wisdom to take us out with here at the tail end, Brian?
Yes.
What would those be, sir?
Okay, this is how we started when I
that is how we started.
Mike. If there's anybody that hears this or sees this, if we're connecting right now, I want to encourage you to kick down the door of opportunity as you announce your arrival wherever life may take you. And know that there is no man or woman who can tell you otherwise. So as you move forward and you decide that it shall be, you just might be amazed at what happens. I believe in you. And just the thing I would end on is try to enjoy the moment and the day and the ups and the downs. And it's challenging and it's scary. But over time, I think when I look back and I look at a body of work, because I've stayed focused on day to day, there's a lot of proud moments, and I want that for you too. So stay on the path. I believe in you.
I love it, man. Thank you so much. Thank you, Brian. Thank you for your time, for your wisdom, for just sitting down and sharing and having a really candid conversation, for sharing with your audience. We got, tons of folks over here. I am a couple reminders for folks, especially if you're listening on the podcast later. Definitely check out Brian's channel at youtube.com/Brian G. Johnson TV. Check out he's got his courses on his website there at briangjohnson.tv. And true that. So thank you so much for your time today. If you want to hang out for just a moment, I'm going to go ahead and take us out for the afternoon.
Awesome.
All right, folks, that is going to bring us to a close for another episode of the Leadership Toolkit. Thank you very much, everybody, for investing your time with us. I hope that you have gained some wisdom and insight from this conversation. I know that I have. I gain so much from sitting and having these conversations with these amazing leaders and creators and entrepreneurs. It's just fantastic. So please do me a favor. If you know of somebody that could gain something from this episode, make sure and share it out. Put some thumbs up here on the video where you're at, and please tune in again. That's one of the only ways this show continues to grow is thumbs up, shares, likes, and then tune in with us again next Wednesday at 12:05 p.m. Mountain Time. Until we speak next, everybody, I hope you have an absolutely fantastic rest of your day, fantastic week. And until we speak next, stay great. We'll talk soon, everyone.